Hey Wargamers, today we're going to do another Tau Army List review, and this one is probably going to be the last one of 8th edition, the way things are wrapping up here. So, we will move on to 9th edition, of course, when that launches, but today we are sticking firmly in 8th edition. So, I know you're excited about 9th, but we're going to talk 8th still today. If you are new to the channel, if you're not familiar with how this works, basically, I go and I take army lists that are sent to me by my supporters over on Patreon, and I review those lists, talk about the things I think work well, things that I think could be improved, and then I create a revision of that list for them, basically trying to tweak it to be a little bit more effective while still maintaining the general theme or idea of that list. You know, if it's a real fluffy list, I don't want to make it totally outside of that. If it's, super competitive, I don't want to make it super fluffy. I'm trying to, stay the course, but make it a little bit more punchy. So that's what we're doing today. Today we have a 2,000 point list that focuses on a combination of Tau Sept and a custom Sept. So no Farsight Enclaves here today. We are looking at other Septs. So it starts off with a battalion detachment with the custom Sept traits of hardened warhead and hybridized weaponry. So that's going to increase the AP of your smart missile systems, missile pods, high-yield missile pods, seeker missiles, stuff like that. And hybridized weaponry is going to add 4 inches to assault and grenade ranges. Notably, that is 4 inches to the maximum range, and that will come up in a minute here. For stratagems, we have Emergency Dispensation to take a relic, and we'll see what that is in a moment. For HQs, we have 2 Cadre Fireblades. Cadre Fireblades, a kind of go-to HQ choice. They bring a lot to the table. They are a reliable source of a market light, and they're good. They are better when you have a lot of fire warriors, a lot of strike teams with you. Is really when Cadre Fireblades are their most effective. And so if we're looking at them primarily as a market light source, which you'll see this list does rely heavily on these Fireblades for market light sources, there are some other more cost-effective options that we can look at as well. For our third HQ, we have a commander in a crisis battlesuit with 4 cyclic ion blasters, iridium battlesuit, and 2 shield drones. So the thing about this guy here is, kind of the go-to right now is 3 cyclic ion blasters and a advanced targeting system that is going to, maintain a high volume of fire. It makes them a little bit cheaper, but it also makes those 3 cyclic ion blasters a little bit more punchy, a little bit more versatile as well. So, in general, I would still lean towards the 3 with the advanced targeting system as the way to go. The 2 shield drones, great. We need drones for those commanders, so that's a wonderful choice there. Something that you'll see here is that we actually, this battalion detachment is pretty packed. We can break off some of these units into a separate detachment and get at least one more command point. So that's something that in the revision I will look to do is take one of these HQ units at least and put them in a different detachment to get another CP. For troops, we have a breacher team with 5 fire warriors, another breacher team with 5 fire warriors, and a strike team with 5 fire warriors. Though the strike team here is nice. I don't know if this combination was selected specifically because of the writer's model library or not. Kind of feels that way, but either way, I would tend to lean either all breachers or all strike team. Breachers have been performing very well, and I think this is a good list to have 3 squads of breachers. They don't benefit really from that hybridized weaponry benefit. They add 4 inches to their maximum range, so they're long range, but that doesn't trickle down to amplify the range of their medium and close range profiles as well, unfortunately. So you're getting 4 more inches on that strength 4 profile. That's useful, but not as good as having a 9-inch close range. So yeah. Looking at that, I would probably switch more towards breachers, and also looking at ways to bring some additional drones into this list. Particularly guardian drones, shield drones are a good way to bulk up this list in a cost-effective manner. For elites, we have a unit of crisis bodyguards, presumably bodyguards because of the bodyguard stratagems that allow them to be a little bit more punchy. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Crisis Bodyguards, all kitted out with 3 cyclic ion blasters. One of them has an Iridium battle suit. And then they have the Crosslink Stabilizer Jet prototype weapon. This allows them to re-roll their 1s to hit and to wound. Awesome prototype weapon for cyclic ion blasters because you don't have to worry about the 1s when overcharging quite as much. And you also get that helpful, re-rolling 1s to wound, which when you are overcharging can really be a bear. So having those 1s disappear more or less in both hitting and wounding is useful for them. However, they are this unit is going to be in the dirt. They are going to be in the middle of everything. And so I wonder if the reactive countermeasures selection might be a more advantageous choice in the long run. This is going to give you a really good punch, but it's not going to necessarily give you the long-term viability that you need from these guys. So in the revision, I might play around with reactive countermeasures here. It's always kind of a toss-up in my mind about which of those two is better because they both are so good. But I think for a unit that's going to be in the midst of the heat, the hotness of the battlefield, reactive countermeasures might be a little bit better for them. They have 8 shield drones. Great. Those shield drones are going to have a hard time staying on the tabletop at that unit size. They're probably going to have some morale issues, so maybe we will look at addressing that in the revision. We have a unit of broadsides for heavy support. They all have high-yield missile pods, smart missile systems, seeker missile, and velocity tracker. This makes a lot of sense given the custom Sept tenet. However, we're only really using one of those perks, right? We're only using the hardened warheads abilities. We're not using hybridized weapons. So, maybe if we're looking at crisis suits as being a staple of this list, maybe we actually want to transition over to crisis suits with missile pods because they will benefit from both of those tenets and are pretty cheap. So I'm going to look at that in the revision as well. We have another detachment here that is a Spearhead, which is our Tau Sept detachment. This one has Longstrike and a bunch of hammerheads. So Longstrike has smart missile systems, ion cannon, seeker missiles, and then he has the Strength of Belief Warlord trait. I think that's a really situational Warlord trait. I would tend to stay away from that one and go with something a little bit better, or at least a little bit more universal. For the remainder of the detachment, we have 3 hammerheads. One of them has the high capacitance railgun. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't take that on Longstrike. But if we want to take it on this hammerhead, that sounds cool. He has 2 seeker missiles, smart missile systems. Yeah, this is all great. Unfortunately, those seeker missiles and smart missile systems won't benefit from hardened warheads like we had before. But nonetheless, still excellent loadout considering that you have Longstrike alongside. That high capacitance railgun is going to be effective in this scenario. So overall, what do I think about this list? Looking at this list, it does well. I feel like it's stretching a little thin. It's trying to do a couple different things here. Maybe a little bit too much. I like the mobility of the infantry here. I like the mobility of the suits. Having the broadside unit in here, I think, is maybe one of the weaker aspects of the list. We don't have a ton of drones, and of course we can't. So let's say we have 12 drones, which isn't terrible. Or actually, no, we have 14 drones because that commander had some up here, right? So we had 14 drones, a pretty good number of drones, but considering how much heat these crisis suits and broadsides are going to take, maybe we want to have more. We're also looking at the broadsides here as a really static element of this list. They're not going to be able to move and shoot very well or anything like that. So I think the mobility of that is an issue. The mobility of your hammerheads as well is potentially an issue. You have Longstrike, but once he's removed from the tabletop, then that severely limits the output of your hammerhead. So I think the broadsides and the hammerheads are a very thematic choice, and I think they're cool and can do a lot of damage. But I think they might undermine some of the tactical decisions that are trying to be made here. So it's going to work well against mechanized lists. It's going to work well against some some heavy infantry lists, I think it's going to struggle with, ironic that I struggle with the word struggle. It's going to struggle with some lists that have a lot of infantry. It's going to struggle with flyers. Even though we have velocity trackers on these broadsides here, I think we're going to see that not pan out quite as well if there's a lot of flyers. If there's one or two, that'll be fine. But if we have more, then we might run into some issues. And yeah, we don't have a lot of marker light support either to help deal with that. So things I'm going to be revising here, I'm going to look at leaning into this custom sept a little bit more. I'm going to look at increasing our mobility. I'm going to look at adding some redundancy to the list in terms of durability and marker light support. Those things combined, I think, will make for a list that's a little bit more consistent in how it plays and a little bit more rewarding play experience. All right, and here's the revision. It's basically the same idea, although we have 3 detachments now in order to gain that extra command point. And yeah, so we start off with our custom sept with hardened warheads and hybridized weaponry. We're maintaining that. That's part of the core identity of this list, so we're sticking to it. We have emergency dispensation still, although we will use that in a different way in this list. So starting out with our HQ, we have a commander in a crisis battlesuit. He is our warlord now. No longer is Longstrike our warlord, but the commander is. He has through Unity Devastation. That's something that's going to come into play with a bunch of buddies that he's going to be hanging out with. So we're going to be able to improve our shooting for our friends nearby. He comes with 4 missile pods and an Iridium battlesuit. So he's going to be our backline missile commander. He's going to be hanging out with a bunch of buddies and improving our shooting and the overall efficacy of our list. I also take an ethereal with an honor blade and a hover drone. This is going to come in handy for keeping those drones on the table. We have a high demand for drones in this list, and so we don't want to lose any of them to morale. And this ethereal is going to help make that happen. It's also going to help keep our infantry on the tabletop too. So we got our troops here. Again, we're switching to all breachers. These are all breacher 5-man teams, and the Shazwi now come with marker lights. Trying to spread out those marker lights, make sure that we have adequate marker light support throughout the list. One of the nice things about having marker lights on Shazwi, especially on units like breachers, where they may not have a shooting opportunity every turn. Oh my goodness, why is it? I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's giving me the preview window everywhere I go. So the breacher teams, having a marker light on the Shazwi is nice because they won't necessarily always have a shooting option with their pulse blaster. So you're not necessarily giving up a pulse blaster shot to use that marker light. So there's a lower opportunity cost there than if you were to bring a marker light on a strike team, for example. We're bringing Guardian drones and Shield drones, so that Guardian drone will help keep our infantry on the board. It also is a cheap savior protocol, so it's only 8 points for a Guardian drone as opposed to 10 points for a Shield drone, so we can use that savior protocol a little bit more cost effectively if we need to. So yeah, we have 3 of those. For elites, we have 3 Firesight Marksmen. Again, a cost-effective choice for a reliable marker light. Then we have a unit of crisis suits. This one is a 3-man squad, all with 3 missile pods. So we have 3 missile pods here. They're benefiting from both of our custom sept choices, and they're going to be hanging out with that missile commander as well, so they can benefit from his presence. I'm giving these guys a cross-link stabilizer jets this time because, as you can see below here, I have 2 crisis suit units, and I can only give them 1, and so I'm giving them these guys cross-link stabilizer jets. I'll give the other unit, the cyclic ion blaster unit, the reactive countermeasures instead. So the reason why I'm giving the missile pod unit the cross-link stabilizers is because they're probably not going to receive the same amount of incoming fire as other units, and so having the boost to their shooting probably makes a little bit more sense than a boost to their durability. Looking at the next unit here, these are crisis bodyguards. Again, still bodyguards, because if we want to use those stratagems while we're in the heat of combat, we can do that. This is a 4-man unit, not a 3-man unit. And one of them has an airburst fragmentation projector, as well as a cyclic ion blaster and a shield generator. he's going to be our guy that's benefiting from reactive countermeasures. And yeah, he has a Iridium battlesuit as well. Then I have three guys with 3 cyclic ion blasters each. That gives us a hefty volume of fire and an extreme amount of durability. So these guys are going to be very hard to dislodge because of the combination of a shield generator, Iridium battlesuit, and reactive countermeasures. They're going to be a bear for an opponent to deal with, and the opponent will have to deal with them. That, again, takes pressure off all your other units and means that some of these other things that we're bringing might stay on the board a little bit longer than if we had a more easily removed crisis suit unit. So you're getting dividends for having a beefier crisis suit unit in this way as well. Our other detachment, our new detachment, is a Outrider detachment. So we're getting that command point from having this additional detachment in our list. Same custom steps, so we can share savior protocols between this detachment and the prior detachment. I have my cyclic ion blaster enforcer commander here, so he's now in an enforcer suit instead of just a crisis battle suit. And he has advanced targeting system and 3 cyclic ion blasters. Then I have 3 6-man units of shield drones, so 18 drones here alone. So we're beefing up the drones here. Again, trying to make sure that we're not cutting anything too close. Having that extra unit or extra few drones in here really will make a difference. And then moving on to the final detachment, it is much the same as it was before. We have Longstrike and then 3 hammerheads. These are all taking ion cannons now. Instead of using the prototype weapon for the high capacitance railgun here, I'm using it for reactive countermeasures on the crisis suit unit. Again, because I think you're probably just going to get more use out of that. You're going to get more bang for your buck with that than basically having an additional railgun. So yeah, we have that same tank element. We have a bunch more drones. We have more commanders, and we have more crisis suits. So I think this list has some redundancy that will help it be more effective and cover a wider range of opponents. Basically, the idea here is that we would have our commander, our cyclic ion commander, as well as the cyclic ion crisis team being much more of an aggressive unit, being supported by our troops and infantry. And then behind them, we have our crisis suit missile pod team, our missile commander, and all of our tanks hanging out in the back. So having both mobile and stationary elements in this list, I think, is a winning combination. So let me know what you think in the comments below. What things would you keep the same? Which things would you change? As always, love to hear your thoughts. So thanks for watching, and as always, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This channel is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over there as well. Special thanks to Chris Kessler, Jacob Harkrider, Jake Johnson, Jared Egler, Jim Bob, Mark Sherwing, Michael Byrne, Shifty, Stephen Cohen, Tao Oswell, and Zealous Brimstone. Really, I couldn't do it without you guys. So again, thank you and happy wargaming.